So Ron, tell us a little bit about KUNGFU.AI.
KUNGFU.AI, we're a AI professional services company. We help companies build custom AI and machine learning solutions.
Can you tell me a little bit about the custom part of that? What do you mean when you say custom AI solutions? Isn't it all like ready now? I mean, you read the literature.
Can't you just get it right off the shelf?
Yeah.
There are some problems that are pretty well solved that, like if you do an OCR, there are great APIs out there that you can get from Google and other vendors, and that is definitely the way to go if you're going at scale. Other things, though, really require a little bit more customization, especially if you're trying to solve problems that are a little bit more on the bleeding edge. So what we do very often is help companies with custom computer vision problems like object detection, classification. We do a lot on natural language processing.
Okay.
So that can involve things like summarization, text sentiment analysis, all kinds of things like that. And then we also work more traditional data science things like predictive analysis. We've done content recommender systems or anomaly detection, things like that.
Sounds great. Okay. So you're a co-founder of KUNGFU.AI. How do you balance, your technology role and your entrepreneur role?
I think that's actually the hardest part of my job, really. And then trying to stay up on the state of the art at the same time, it's pretty hard. But I really love early stage companies. I love startups, and I like that balance of being able to try to build a company, but also try to almost be hands-on in a way, right? Especially in the early stages of the company. And one of the advantages we have at KUNGFU.AI, which is really nice versus, let's say, a product company, is that we get exposed to all kinds of problems. So our clients are working on the entire spectrum, right? And it's really like a golden age in AI right now, having lived through some of the darker times, and so having that exposure and being able to be on the bleeding edge is a part of our responsibility. It's part of our job, and I love it. And so it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it, so I don't mind it too much.
Got it. I understand that. The breadth of projects that you engage in is pretty stunning, and it really keeps you mentally busy.
It
right?
sure does. It really does.
You mentioned kind of the dark ages. Okay, so you have a Master's of Science in, let me get this right, evolutionary and adaptive systems, and you got it during the last AI winter. And so, with a couple of patents and DNA pattern recognition and a paper I really do want to read on cellular network energy optimization.
Oh, it's exciting.
Okay, that's very cool. What are the changes you've seen? I mean, we're going through a renaissance in artificial intelligence now. And so what are the top 3 or 4 things you've seen in the industry that really made this possible?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Because 20 years ago when we were building AI systems, and we were using a lot of the same techniques we use now, neural networks and things like that. The real challenge was at the time is that there was a different perspective in AI, and it remains that how do you solve the hard AI problem, the general AI problem? And the two approaches are typically labeled, symbolic versus a connectionist approach. And the symbolic guys, that approach had a lot of momentum at that time. And so this kind of crazy idea of building intelligent software without really being able to decompose it and understand what it was doing was pretty radical. And I think things got a little overpromised, a little overhyped, and that coupled with the dot-com boom, which took a lot of the attention away. We were kind of in a situation, I'd say, by the early 2000s, where it was it kind of felt like that those approaches were dead ends, right? And what we realized, in retrospect, is that we thought we needed a little bit more data, and we thought we needed a little bit more computational power. We were off orders of magnitude, and it turned out that the core approaches that we were using back then are the dominant approaches that are behind all the successful techniques right now that you hear about in the news.
Right.
So we were on the right track. We were just a little bit early and had kind of underestimated some of the data needs and the computational needs.
Got it. Now I remember some of the ontological approaches, right? We're trying to map out all of the relationship spaces, and that got to be exponentially unwieldy.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and I do think that those approaches have something to offer, and I foresee a time where both these approaches kind of work together. Okay. But right now, the sort of the neural network, the deep learning-based techniques are getting all the attention and all the love, and so I think it'll ebb and flow over time.
Okay. Going a little off script, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So, a lot of current thinking about today's deep neural nets has to do with the fact they're not very transparent.
Right.
Right. And they're not verifiable in a classic sense.
Right.
But yet, think about a pilot's license or driver's license or captaining a ship. Those tests are designed to test a not very transparent, not very verifiable system. That's humans.
Yeah,
right?
I totally agree.
And so, how do you look at this whole testability thing? I mean, do we just need to give autonomous vehicles a driving test? I mean, where does that go?
So I think that's a really interesting approach, and I think it's a really, really good question. You are deploying systems that can have trouble maybe with edge cases, right? Like humans, we fall victim to optical illusions, right?
Right.
And those types of things expose lack of perception, right? That literally, they're edge cases that can trick our systems, our vision systems, and other. And I don't think we'll ever develop solutions that are completely resistant to that type of edge case. And I think that, I mean, this is a personal opinion, but I do think that as we get more and more advanced and capable and sophisticated AI-based techniques, that explainability, right? Understanding at a deeper and deeper level how they work is something that we're going to have to be comfortable with not having, okay? And it's very much, an example I use all the time is, if you are trying to make the decision if you're looking at a photo and that's a photo of a cat,
right.
But you don't know how you know, right?
Exactly.
And if you try to write down the steps of what you did, you will absolutely fail. And that's the reason we need these new types of techniques, these machine learning techniques, where we can say, look, we know what the answer is. We're not sure how we know, but we have algorithms now that allow us to show the software something, get its answer, correct it, and it can learn to generalize, and it's working really, really, really well. And I think explainability, I think we'll get better at it. I think it won't totally go out the window, but I do think that we have to be comfortable long-term with some limited explainability.
I think what scares most people is that we kind of know how people fail in these systems.
Right.
And the machines are going to fail, but they'll fail in new and interesting ways. Right? They don't have the same optical illusions, right?
That's exactly right. I think that's totally right. It's like, you don't want to make the same mistakes your parents made, so you make a whole different class of mistakes, right? And I think, there'll be some of that as well.
Great. All right. So where are most of KUNGFU.AI's customers with respect to AI adoption?
We're seeing a pretty broad spectrum. We help companies who are literally looking at how to get involved, right? They understand that there are like a whole new class of techniques and capabilities out there, but they don't have any experience with it. They may have literally no data scientists within the organization, and they're wondering how to take that first step and need essentially strategic assistance. I'd say most of our customers are more in the middle ground where they have an idea of what they want to do, and it's either they need an assist because it's outside their domain or their set of expertise, and they're looking for us to come in and literally advise them on that, and then either build it entirely or to help them build it. And then we even have customers at the other end of the spectrum who have dozens, if not hundreds, of data scientists at the largest, Fortune 500 companies, and they're literally just capacity constrained, right? And some of it can be they need additional capabilities, and then sometimes it can be that they do need augmentation in certain areas of domain, like whether it's computer vision or NLP. So we really see the whole spectrum.
Do you ever see customers who ask you to kind of shadow a group they're doing as a second opinion? I mean, does that ever happen, or is that kind of a redundant effort in what you're doing?
That's interesting. We've not so much as a shadow, but we have done an assist where we will join a project, where we'll basically say, they're looking at something and they need additional people with experience in that area to augment them.
Okay. Yeah. And so you are seeing kind of the talent shortage in the data science AI world. Then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very competitive out there, hiring, and it's really tough too, because it's tough to get good talent because of a factor that people outside the industry may not realize, but there's this convergence in AI and machine learning of multiple sort of backgrounds, right? You have people coming from maybe a math background, a statistical background, or people coming in with more of a computer science set of experiences. And what we're seeing too is that there are a lot of techniques that they're actually pretty similar from these different domains, and they have different terminologies, but they're actually kind of variants on a theme. And I think this is also probably the biggest challenge associated with hiring right now. And one of the things that we help companies with the most is that analytics is moving increasingly from a backroom exercise where you're analyzing data, you're trying to understand the past and visualize it, to moving machine learning AI products forward, actually into production, integrated into production systems. And that brings up a whole host of problems that you don't traditionally encounter, like uptime and latency, redundancy, and all these types of DevOps issues that are newish to AI people.
Right. And so I'd say we're practicing some of that internally here, and I'm not going to introduce you to my data science people.
Okay, I do understand that.
So now we'll at some point. Cliff and Sean, great guys. So KUNGFU.AI talks about transformation. A lot of people talk about digital transformation. What does it mean specifically in an AI context for your customers?
Right. Yeah. What we mean by that is that we are big believers that machine learning and AI is transformative in itself in the same way that the internet was. If you go back 25 years ago, as connectivity was starting to take off, you could pretty clearly see that this was going to have a giant impact, and that there would come a day where if you were a business doing anything in the world, you were going to have connectivity, right? You were going to have to take the internet and networking into consideration, right? You couldn't live in isolation, and we really feel that's the same with machine learning and AI. There are an infinite number of problems out there that are not amenable to procedural, iterative-based software solutions, right? And so we've got this whole new class of techniques, and I think, seriously, within 10 years, it will become expected that pretty much any software platform will have AI or machine learning algorithms in use all over the place. We were talking to a company the other day that went from 0 machine learning models in production in 2017 to 70 in 2018.
Wow, nice. Okay.
And so it's transformative in that sense. But what we mean by it is helping companies take that first step, get a small win under the belt, right? There's a lot of low-hanging fruit right now. And then once you've got an AI solution in production, there are special elements to that, right? Unlike traditional software where you deploy it and the environment doesn't change, it remains pretty much stable, if not bug-free. With AI solutions, right? They've hopefully learned to generalize the domain, but if the input data doesn't match the training data, or if it shifts over time as things change, the accuracy of these models can drift as well. So there's much more of a need for sort of care and feeding for machine learning and AI-based models in a production system than most software companies are typically used to.
So to me, that actually sounds kind of like agile.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way. Right?
Absolutely. No, we're big believers in agile. It's really more sort of on what we call the AI ops side, or AI DevOps side, where you deploy these models and you can't just forget about them, right? You have to deploy them. You need some type of feedback loop with a human in the loop, looking at the predictions, looking at the analytics, and then it's interesting because there's a downside to the fact that you do need to have a little bit more effort in maintaining these models, but it's more than made up for the fact that these systems can continue to learn. So if you take the data that is fed into the system, and if it makes mistakes on those and you feed it back in the training cycle, you can actually have software that improves itself. All you have to do is capture that information and institute a training process.
So do you see any inflection points coming up for mid-market companies in terms of what to expect with AI? And kind of give you an example. We just talked about the web and interconnectivity, right?
Right?
So I've been through several waves of this. So desktop publishing, right? Knowing PostScript was key.
Yes.
Then the web, knowing HTML was key. So with this AI transformation, where do you see the next step for customers needing to buy into? Because right now, I don't need to know PostScript to print things, right? To do desktop publishing, right?
That's right.
So I don't need to know HTML in general to take advantage of the web. So where does AI go?
I think that those are perfect analogies. I think that as we go up in abilities, right, certain things that were state of the art, extremely challenging, just become the hello world example, right?
Yeah.
And then we're pushing boundaries, and things that are really just not feasible right now will become state of the art. And I think that's just, I think AI and machine learning, like any other sort of technology domain, will have those experiences. One of the main differences that its ability, its transformative ability, meaning its ability to make whole new classes of problems approachable and solvable, is what's unique about them, right? And in very much the same way that the internet is so revolutionary in the history of technologies, it's very much going to be the case that machine learning and AI will be viewed that way, I think.
So I think it in summary, what I'm hearing is that as AI becomes more mainstream, your customers are going to be looking for a little bit more sophisticated ways of integrating it. Right now, I think they're skimming the top level and saying, yeah, I don't know if I need to do that big stuff.
Right.
But eventually it becomes more accessible.
I think that's totally right. And I think that for most businesses, there's just a lot of low-hanging fruit, like we talked about, in that most aren't practicing any type of AI or machine learning, and there are no end of really valuable business opportunities that they could use as sort of their first foray into that world.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ron.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thanks for having me.